Right, very good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Strategic Planning. I'm Councillor Rogers, and I'm chairing today's Planning Committee. To my right are Officer Stephen Hunt, John Marshall and Graham Varley. To my left is John Wiley from Democratic Services and the Council Solicitor, David Crampton. Also in the chamber are members of the public and obviously committee members. Arrangements for dealing with the planning applications, an officer's summary, an update will be given. Members are to note the information given by the officers. Any decision proposed which is contrary to the recommendation contained in the report will require reasons if the proposal is to refuse, and reasons and conditions if the proposal is to approve the application. In accordance with the Council's equality policy, speakers are asked to refrain from making comments which be construed as being discriminatory or defamatory, otherwise it will be necessary to intervene. Additionally, I would request that all the differing views may be expressed, that people respect those differences. Please ensure your mobile phones are switched off to avoid any disruption. And whilst you're not speaking, please put yourselves on mute. There's no fire alarm planned today, so if there is 1 hour, attendees will give us instructions where to go, and the fire exits are there. So item number on, declarations of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest. I'll kick us off. I've had various emails on this application. I've not responded to any of them. Councillor Kristen White.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to say that this application is actually in my ward.
Thank you. Councillor Steele.
Yes, I'm a member of the Preston Traffic Group, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bibb.
I've also had emails which I've responded to but not expressed an opinion.
Thank you. Anybody on the right? Councillor Corliss.
Same with the emails. I've had emails but not expressed.
That's fine. Just for anybody listening, I don't respond to the emails for the simple reason I just think we get caught up in too much. We're here for planning committee today. The decision will be debated and made in here. So if I offend anybody by not responding to emails, I'm sorry, but that's been my policy from the start. I just don't respond to them. So item number 2, to approve the record of the minutes of the committee held on the 11th of September. Can I have a proposer for those minutes, please? Proposed by Councillor Heslop-Mullins, seconded. Councillor Steele, all in favour of those minutes from the 11th? Thank you, Chancellor, everyone. And then again, we'll do the minutes from the subcommittees. 1st of September, a proposer for those. That's Eastern area. Councillor Heslop-Mullins, seconded by Councillor Kaysen. All in favour? Brilliant. And again, 2nd of September, Western area. Proposed by Councillor Robson, seconded by Councillor Kaysen. All in favour? Thank you. Thank you. Right, item number 4, any withdrawals?
Thanks, the Chair. No withdrawals.
Good job. Members, we've got one application today, land east of Daisy Hill. This is the solar application. So on my list, we have got, we'll do officer updates first. That would help. It's quite a long one, so get comfy. Over to you, Graham.
Thank you, Chair. It's not too long. There are 2 additional representations which were received on the 7th of October. The first one is an email from a member of the public objecting on the following grounds. An independent review of the ALC Agricultural Land Classification Report should be commissioned. Archaeology trial trenching should be carried out before permission is granted. The proposal is to use ballast rather than pile driving to secure the panels. This will add an additional 7 acres of concrete to the site. The implementation period should be 3 years, not the requested 5 years, as this will set a concerning precedent for non-NSIP proposals. An appeal in North Warwickshire is cited where 5 years was not allowed. They request that the applicant is required to provide other examples of decisions with 5-year conditions. And they request the application is refused or deferred pending the archaeological surveys and AOC review. Then the second is an objection from Reform UK, Northallerton and Ripon. They have 2 applications in the Richmond and Northallerton area from the same applicant, which appear speculative and all seek to occupy productive agricultural land. Clustering of uncommitted schemes raises concerns about grid deliverability, cumulative loss of agricultural land, and speculative land banking. The request for a 5-year implementation condition strongly indicates there is no grid connection offer. Speculative proposals have no community purpose, tie up wheat-producing land for an indeterminate period, and risk later sale without a secure decommissioning bond or community fund. Key data is missing to adjacent dwellings at Stockdale Farm, Dairy House and Daisy Hill Cottages, There is no noise or vibration assessment or CTMP published. They suggest the following needs to be obtained and published before a decision is made. Why adjoining properties are not named in assessments, specific heights and lengths of fences and hedges, when noise and vibration assessments and the CTMP will be published, the grid connection offer summary and cable route plan, dated district network operator programme to justify the 5-year implementation request, the grid export and curtailment strategy and confirmation of space for battery storage, details of a decommissioning bond and a full ecology report and BNG plan. And the applicants have also submitted some supporting notes in response to some of the topics that have been raised. So some of these are included in the committee report. However, additional comments are summarised as follows. Agricultural land classification. They recognise the ALC report confirming the site comprises 100% Grade 3B agricultural land appears at odds with the MAF, now DEFRA post-1988 ALC surveys. However, the ALC system was established in 1966 and provisional mapping was carried out at a scale of 1 to 250,000. The maps remain provisional and are intended to be used as a guide to be supplemented by subsequent detailed field surveys. The ALC provisional maps are caveated that they are suitable for strategic planning purposes only and not for scales below 1 to 250,000 or for the definitive classification for a local area or site. A detailed field survey was therefore undertaken, including soil sampling and laboratory testing, and the results concluded Grade 3B soils across the site. Drainage. The site is mainly within flood zone 1 and at low risk of flooding. Panels are raised 150 millimetres above the 1 in 100-year peak flood level, and there are no sensitive equipment located within the flood zone extents. There are no panels in the northern section, which is within flood zone 3. Research shows that provided vegetation cover is maintained, runoff from solar farms is insignificant. However, it is proposed to minimise soil compaction, sow seed below and around the panels, and as an additional measure to provide interception swales at the most down gradient row of panels. Screening. Existing hedges will be retained, enhanced and maintained at 2.5 metres height. Glint and glare panel fencing will be erected along Daisy Hill Road prior to installation of panels. The point of connection. The point of connection will be to Saltend substation 7 kilometres away. Cable routing is via the public highway with no third-party land involved. Fire safety. There is no battery storage proposed. Fires are very rare, but if they do take place, they're usually due to faulty or poorly installed electrical components. The construction team have safely installed over 100 utility scale projects across the UK in the last 15 years. They ensure all components comply with UK safety standards. The site will be monitored 24/7 and a full preventative maintenance programme carried out, including regular site checks. An effective measure is to control excessive vegetation ground cover, and this will be included in the construction environmental management plan. And economic benefits. The jobs will be supported across the design, consenting and construction phase, operation and maintenance and decommissioning. And they include electrical installation and engineering, landscape management, fencing, data analysis, legal services and distribution and logistics. They employ many people directly and source from local firms wherever possible. They have already contacted local contractors. And the NPPF advises significant weight can be given to economic benefits. And there are just 4 amendments to the reports that we put forward, which we propose need to be included. So condition 15 states that the glint and glare fence should be implemented as soon as the PV panels are installed. This needs amendment to state that it shall be implemented before the PV panels are installed. The requirement to secure a habitat management and monitoring plan via the Section 106 agreement can be removed, as this is repeated within condition 16. Comments from Humber Archaeology Partnership in the report request deferral pending a geophysical survey. They have confirmed that a survey was undertaken by the applicants in August and November 2024. An updated planning response has been received, which recommends archaeological evaluation and any subsequent mitigation strategy is identified following that survey, and that this can be conditioned. A revised condition is recommended to require a written scheme of investigation, which should replace the wording, which is at condition 17. And finally, we need to add an additional condition to require a construction environmental management plan to ensure that measures are in place to mitigate impacts on adjoining properties during construction. If I can share, there are 3 or 4 things in there that have been raised which are not addressed in the committee report. So if I could just quickly make an officer response to those. It's in relation to the first objection that I mentioned. That says that the posts would be supported by ballast. The actual design and access statement in the report states that they will be pile driven. And the applicants have confirmed that these are not the piles that you get on a normal building construction site. They're much smaller and they're hand piled, so they're not something which creates noise and vibration. A request was made for examples of other non-NSIP decisions, and the applicants have provided some examples of other non-NSIP decisions from other local authorities which have imposed a 5-year implementation period. There was an appeal referenced in North Warwickshire. That is still to be determined, so we don't know what condition is going to be imposed on that if it's approved. And finally, in terms of the request for a 5-year implementation period, just to state that it wouldn't actually prevent agricultural use from continuing in the meantime. So in terms of the comments made from Reform UK, it wouldn't basically sterilise the use as agricultural land until the scheme went ahead. And just briefly on the Reform UK objection, they referred to noise assessments or the lack of noise assessments. The operational use is quiet. Our public protection officers have raised no concerns about that. They've raised no particular concerns subject to some conditions which we are recommending related to restrictions on working hours and in terms of the lighting of the sites. There is no lighting other than some operational lighting. And the applicants have confirmed that they do have a grid connection offer, but the dates are dependent on planning permission being granted and are difficult to predict because of the grid reforms currently taking place, and that's one of the reasons why a 5-year condition is proposed. And the final one that Reform UK mentioned was about bonds. So it's bonds to ensure that should the applicants no longer be in a position to decommission the land, that it can still take place. And they've confirmed that there is a contractual agreement in place with the landowner that includes insurances and bonds that ensures that the land can be restored at any time should the applicant cease to have an interest in the site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Graham, for that. Members, we've got 2 speakers today. The first one is Mr. Ireland, objector. Mr. Ireland, if you'd like to come up and take a seat, you'll be given 5 minutes with a 30-second warning when 30 seconds remains. If you take a seat and press your microphone and begin when you're ready, sir.
We're live, yes. I'm Ian Ireland, a resident of Preston for some 30 years now. Seen a massive change in the village over the last few years. Developments, north, south, east, west. And whilst Daisy Hill is not on my doorstep, it's near enough to have an impact on the village. And that's our main concern at this point in time. We've also, bearing in mind, we will also have YEP, HIEP, possibly Neat Marsh developments coming on. The cumulative impacts of all these will have adverse effects on us. And it's not very noticeable that reading through the documentation that people put a lot of work into that. You know, I'm a layman, I'm simple terms about things. But through all these documents, I always see a play on numbers. You know, there's 1,848 HGV movements to load this site. Well, that assumes that all the HGVs are going one way and never coming back, I guess. So it's nearer 4,000. And then add to that all the commercial feed that it will get from minor contractors, electricians, you know, land workers, drainage people, and so on and so forth. It has to be around 8,000 to 10,000 vehicles feeding that site over that period. It's a great concern to us, and anybody who has been into Preston will know that it's a medieval village. Can't say any more than that. 13th century roads, 13th century pavements, and the main route that people are recommending to go north-south down Weghill Road and down Stades Road takes across some of the conservation area where the houses actually open onto pavements. They open onto pavements and the trucks go past those pavements. I'll pass those around later for you to have a look at. We have frequent conflicts with HGVs at the crossroads. And again, there's damage to buildings, there's damage to vehicles, damage to the chapel. We're trying to do something about it as a group, as a residents group, to get stop lines moved back to give us more breathing space and stuff. We can only do that on one side. On the Weghill School Road side, it's very narrow. And if you look at that, I don't know how people walk along those pavements without feeling threatened by the vehicles there. Yeah, the numbers don't look so bad. It's 4 a day. Hey, Guy, I've also got 70 double-decker buses each day going through that village centre. 70. I bet there's not many villages, towns in England can say that. We've also got running between 20 and 30 HGVs anyway. I don't really need it compounding. I'm not going against the development. Things will be what they be. And if you grant planning permission, I may have to tolerate that. I need to find another way out from that site. I won't want to give it to Burswick because they've got the same problems that we have. You know, they quote they've got a school. I've got an academy with 1,000 people and a junior school with 200 people and an infant school with people. They don't all go through that site, but they are conflicting with these vehicles. So I've just asked you to bear that in mind. And those are important photographs I think you should consider. So I'm just bothered about those vehicle movements, the serious conflicts. And we know if you've been round there, the damage that's caused to the buildings is significant now. They can't get insurances for brick walls. So I think it's not intolerable, but it's certainly getting worse by the moment.
30 seconds left.
Okay. I can take into other things into consideration, bird migrations, etc. You displace them, they're not going to come back for a while. The flooding, which is always downplayed as well. There's 160 miles of drainage systems in the Holderness. You upset one part of it, you upset all of it. That's from Patterington to the South Holderness drain. But just bear in mind, we are concerned about the traffic. Thank you very much indeed.
Time's up. Thank you. Our second speaker is Mr. L. Adams. Mr. Adams, if you'd like to come up, this is the applicant. And you've got 5 minutes and a 30-second warning when 30 seconds remains. If you want to press your microphone, sir, and start when you're ready. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Apologies. Whenever you're ready. Good afternoon, Chair and Committee, and thanks for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Lee Adams, Chief Commercial Officer at Enviromina. Enviromina, as opposed to many developers, we actually design, build, operate and maintain our projects for the full lifespan of the projects, and we've got much experience in the North East, Yorkshire and in the region operating current projects at the moment. Ensuring all planning and social obligations are met. As you are no doubt aware, there is an urgent need for renewable energy in the UK. By 2030, the government has outlined that the UK requires 45 gigawatt of solar to be operational if the current net zero targets are to be achieved, and Daisy Hill will contribute the national and East Riding need to grow solar, renewable and low carbon energy generation to sustain and promote economic growth, as well as increase energy security and reduce carbon emissions. That's approximately 5 Daisy Hill projects consented, built and connected per week between now and then. The Daisy Hill solar scheme will make a notable contribution to this target, powering approximately 18,000 homes and saving the equivalent of 10,000 tonnes of carbon per year, and providing in excess of 6 million in local business rates over the project lifetime. Construction is with a temporary non-concrete pylon solution, allowing the decommission of the site to easily take place at the end of the project, restoring the land to the current condition. And as the case officer has mentioned, there is a legal insurance decommission and bond in place for the project term should any concerns be raised during the lifetime of the project. It's understood that the concerns were raised regarding the ALC and the grade of the soils. Just to reiterate from the case officer, the ALC maps are substantially out of date, as old as 1966, and those older ones are 1988. And the maps do recommend full scientific soil samples to be taken out by independent contractors. And we can confirm that has been done, and that no BMV soils, best and most versatile, were identified on the site as per the UK government and the solar roadmap. Therefore, these are the ideal sites for site and solar projects. Pleased to confirm that we've worked closely with local stakeholders and had many parish council meetings and open events, members of the local communities and officers to shape and tweak the project from the original plans. And we're pleased to say that we have full support and no objections from the Flood Authority, Highways, Environmental Health, Heritage, Ecology officers, and any of the parish councils listed. Notably, we've had full support from Natural England, who have praised our approach with regards to farmland birds, following the introduction of a 60-metre easement at the north of the site where no panels are proposed to ensure nesting birds are disturbed. And as opposed to many projects we work on, we've actually had a letter of recommendation from the Natural England quoting that it was great to see more developers being willing to make amendments for nature. I'm pleased to confirm to members that we've worked closely with Elstronwick, Burswick and Burton Pidsey parish councils on allocating the community fund, which we are actively discussing with the community on how best to allocate with themselves. We've worked already with the communities during the development process, shaping the design. We've already provided support for some local school trips and planting a number of flower enhancements in the village and enabling the upgrade of the much loved local book shelters and public notice. And from Enviromina, it's great to have it on the record that parish council we've worked closely with, because there is many projects where parish councils are least as engaging. So I want to commend the local parish for the interaction we've had. Significant landscaping is proposed on the site, comprising of over 2 kilometres of additional new native species, 45 hectares of meadow grassland, an improved watercourse maintenance regime, and the proposals will deliver well in excess of the required biodiversity net gain on the site. In summary, the scheme will help meet local and national decarbonisation goals and clearly represent sustainable development. The scheme is in full accordance with the policies of the local and NPPF and has support from all consultees. We do have a secured connection agreement with Northern Power Grid, and it's quite standard for projects now to have the connection slots allocated post application approval.
Seconds left.
But I can confirm that a full secured connection is in place. And we're pleased to have accepted a suite of comprehensive planning conditions with the case officer And I'm pleased to say if there is any concern around the 3 to 5 year implementation period, that we would be comfortable in accepting the 3 years if the members decide. We therefore support the case officer's conclusion that the scheme is acceptable in planning terms and respectfully request that planning permission is granted. And I'm happy to answer any questions if the committee decide.
Thank you, Mr Adams. That's your time up. Thank you very much. If you just turn your microphone off and take your seat again, that'd be grand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, it's over to us. We'll kick off with Councillor Bibb.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 questions for the officers, please. The first one's regarding the 1,848 HGV movements, which the objector has suggested are one way, so it would in effect be double that plus. Could you confirm if that's one way or both ways? And the other question is regarding the Reform UK Northallerton objection. Is it normal for political parties from outside the East Riding to put in objections? Because I would hate to see this being an opportunist political move rather than genuine objection. So how frequently do we get similar objections?
Thank you, Councillor Graham. You want to come in?
Yeah, I'll come in first on the HGV movements. I think this could be a little bit of miscommunication in terms of the different consultee comments that are in the report. Within the highways comments reports, there are some comments from the highway engineer, or observations they call them, and they've said that there will be 1,800 two-way movements. It's actually 924 two-way HG movements. So I think what they've done is they've seen 924, not seen a two-way, and doubled it, and that's where they've got 1,800 from. So it's 924 two-way HGV movements. In terms of other responses from political parties in other areas, I'll be honest, I've not seen it before, but it wouldn't preclude any comment being made on a planning application. And as long as it's raising material considerations, which is, this one does, then we still need to give some, or the appropriate assessment and consideration of that representation.
Thank you for confirming. That's appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Bibb. Anybody else? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a little bit torn because I can understand there's not really many planning reasons to kind of fight this, but I'm genuinely concerned, and we're here to speak for the community. And I think while I'm here, I should say as much. To me, this is just another example of a fund management company from the south of England coming to the East Riding to develop our agricultural land into an energy park. And while they say there's social obligations, we also have a social obligation to protect the food source. And as a council, quite often we will argue the case that this is almost like a food bowl, and people and support our farmers and support our farming networks. And yet here we are again, industrialising some of our green fields. And I was trying to understand the scale of it in my head because I don't really understand acres, but it's like 100 football pitches in size. I play sport, that's big. And I'm a bit shocked, and I just don't know how many more of these we can sustain. And I just wanted to get that out there. I don't know what the planning reasons are to argue with it, because as the applicant says, they've done a very good job and they've ticked every box. But I just struggle with this kind of development in our countryside.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kristen Wise.
Thank you, Chair. I've got quite a few questions to ask, so I hope you don't mind. So first of all, the highways one, for me, it's just an absolute no to go through Bestwick. I do understand what the gentleman was saying and the issues that we have at Preston. However, that traffic is actually much more stationary because the lights stop it, whereas it will be coming through at 30 miles an hour through Bestwick, potentially past primary school children going down a hill. Because either way, where the primary school is, for anybody that doesn't know, it is in the dip. So it doesn't matter which way the lorries come from, they're going downhill at 30 miles an hour. So and the paths there in Bestwick, they don't have these big grass verges. It is basically in lots of places, feels like you're stepping out of your front door. straight onto the path and then the road. So for me, it needs to go through Preston. Wanted to talk about the sequential testing. I know it's past that, but my big concern is I don't know if you can get the map. Can we get the map up, John? Can we look at this map? Can somebody get me that map up on the screen? Yeah. If you look towards the point, where there's like a much more of a point on it, you can see on our copy it says Braemar Riding Centre. Now, if you live local, you actually know that. That flood's terrible. I mean, really bad. In winter, the water will collect there and stay there all winter. It is notorious. Everybody knows. My big concern is I've got all this acreage with solar panels where the runoff is going to literally run down the hill because the solar farm itself is on Daisy Hill. So whilst I understand it's past the sequential test, because as I understand it, the sequential test says there's nowhere else that's suitable. But does that really mean that that is in a suitable location? I've got real concerns about the flooding that it will cause, more like a flash flood because of the runoff down the hill. And then the other question, sorry, is regarding the decommissioning. You were actually saying that there was some sort of agreement with the landowner. Do the officers get to see that agreement? Does it become part of the actual planning document? Because otherwise, if this company was to go bust in the next 40 years, how do we know that it will actually be properly decommissioned by the landowner and that burden then not put on the taxpayer instead? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor. Is that you again, Graham?
Okay, I'll try and take those in order first with councillor Smith's. In relation, it wasn't really a question, but you said that you felt that it was about the size of 100 football pitches. The site is 50 hectares, and if I'm right, please somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe a football pitch is 1 hectare. So the overall site is 50 hectares. That includes the mitigation land to the north. So when you take all of that out, yes, it's still probably around 40 hectares. But I just wanted to make that clear. It's not the size of 100 football pitches. 40 to 50. Yeah. Councillor Kristen White's comments in relation to the HGV movements with a preference for Preston. It's difficult to answer because it's a case of one or the other. But in terms of unfortunately, we couldn't have a highways officer here today. But the highways officer's preference is through Burstwick because there are TROs restricting the size of HGVs in Preston, which are not needed in Burstwick. The school, in terms of the passing through the school in Burstwick, which was raised, if that is a concern, then the CTMP could be added to put in place some conditions that restricts movements to be outside, to make sure that they're only outside of the school drop-off and pick-up areas. Yeah, in terms of flooding and the sequential test, there was a sequential test done for the FRA. The site is mainly in flood zone 3, which is the area which isn't at risk of flooding. The areas at higher risk of flooding, flood zone 1. Apologies. The areas at highest risk of flooding is mainly around the adjacent land where the Burstwick and Braemar drains are situated. I think this is addressed in the committee report. There are two aspects to it, really. One is that the additional biodiversity improvements in terms of the planting of the grassland and the wildflowers between the panels does help in terms of slowing down and restricting movements of surface water creates a better soil structure, which is better able to hold the water. If there are circumstances, for example, in very dry conditions where there may be more surface water runoff, then the applicants are proposing some swales which would hold water. So any water that might have gathered at the bottom, the southern end of the site, can be held in swales, and then that is controlled and managed in terms of controlled discharge into the adjoining watercourses. And both the internal drainage boards and our flood officers have raised no concerns with those at all. And decommissioning, it's a good point actually. What I would suggest on that is that we have a decommissioning condition requirement. And again, in terms of seeing what is included in those contracts, I think it's something that we could put on as a requirement within that decommissioning condition itself to cover that point.
Thanks, Graham. Councillor Robson.
Thank you, Chair. I do feel for local residents. I always do feel for local residents when something big like this is going to happen on their doorstep. And there will be an effect on the local community, and it won't be welcome. And we have to balance that with the benefits of renewable energy. And from my point of view, we can't renew this kind of renewable energy. A solar farm is a necessary evil. We can't be seen to refuse it. So much as I really do feel for the local people, so far as I can see, all the bases have been covered in this application in great detail, and all the concerns have been addressed. So far as any sort of political input that Councillor Bibb mentioned, I think that Reform UK would be against it because they're actually funded by fossil fuel companies. So I can't see any reason why we shouldn't approve this. It is a work in progress. There is more that's going to have to be done in order to mitigate the effect on the local communities. But at this stage, I think it's best to approve this. So I'm going to recommend approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jeffries.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of questions really on just to clarify things. When you've got the grading of the land, you've got 3A and 3B. That seems to be getting quite a fine definition. And at the moment, are any crops being grown on that land? And if so, you know, how much are they producing? That was just one point. Another point is that it was said that we need to, you know, produce as much green energy as possible. But on page 30.6.8, it says they're not required to demonstrate the proof that this is required. So I realise this is probably central government more than anything else, but I just find it odd that they're not actually providing any proof of what the requirement is. And that's me. Sorry, I did have one more. Yeah, again, made about the crops, sorry. The definition of the land and the proof that this is required. I mean, I totally agree with Councillor Smith. There's so many solar farms going up around at the moment, bigger ones, much bigger than this one. So I just feel that, you know, we are being taken over by them, and the countryside is getting totally and utterly spoiled. And I certainly feel for the residents around the area, because who wants to be surrounded by these huge panels of glass when we could be producing crops? And we're getting to the point where, you know, are we going to be self-sustainable on crops or relying more on import as such? Plus the cost of these panels to the general public, because our electric prices are not coming down due to the subsidies. As you know, a wind farm can get turned off, but they still get paid per megawatt hour, no matter what. And I presume it will be the same for the solar panel farms. So that is John, Councillor Roberts pointed out, they've ticked many boxes, and I'm quite sure this will go through, but it certainly doesn't sit easy with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Does Graham want to come in on any of those points?
Don't think there's much to add on that in terms of what the production of those fields is. They are in agricultural use, but we don't have any details of the actual production. What we need to do is make the assessment on the grading of the agricultural land, and the surveys, which have been backed up by the council's independent review as well, of the methodology of that survey, do show that it's grade 3B, which is classed as less important agricultural land.
Sorry, I did
Not
have
to come back
one.
in, councillor,
I
yeah.
did have asked one more. I do apologize. It was the lost it again now. Oh, the archaeological survey. What will happen if the substantial remains are found there? What will happen to this planning application? Who will decide what is substantial? If you don't mind.
Yeah, there'll be a requirement to carry out some further trial trenching at places across the site. If it's fairly standard practice, all it'll mean is that a start might be delayed a little bit until some recording of or retrieval or recording of those artifacts or found has taken place. So it's fairly standard practice. It's nothing unusual in it at all.
That's great. Just to put the point for me, as a farmer myself, farmers are in a really difficult position. Now you could argue, is this a landowner? Is it a farmer? Let's take it as it's a farmer. You know, current government policy is not supporting farmers, so farmers need to diversify. This is one way of doing it. I absolutely detest having to build anything on agricultural land, but when you've got wheat at £160 a tonne, which is below the cost of production, it's absolutely no wonder that farmers are going out. You know, we seem to be reliant on imported food, and I don't think that's going to change in any time soon. However, this is for 40 years, and governments come and go within 5 years or less. So you know, I take it things change very, very quickly politically, but from a farmer perspective, it is one way of, you know, generating income to keep farms alive and keep, you know, if you know, we what we're told that it's not the best agricultural land and they're going to put them there, but you know, I hate to see any industrialisation. I think, as Councillor Smith said, of the countryside, it's not right. But there's a balance on all sides of this. We've got a long list to get through. So next one, Councillor Casson.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is a small question of concern. Due to the width of the proposed site, I would have preferred to have seen a nature corridor to let deer and animals through. Is that a possibility? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Graham. Is that something you want to, a possible option to look at?
Sorry. If I'm understanding it right, it's about making sure that there is opportunity for wildlife to pass into and through the site as well. Obviously, there is deer security fencing in the form of deer fencing proposed through there. What deer fencing would normally have is quite a large gauge, so it stops larger animals like deer going through, but it doesn't stop other wildlife passing through. So that it's a balance of the applicants would need to ensure that that site is secure, but recognising that there is still a need to ensure that wildlife can pass through the site as well. And deer fencing generally is accepted as the appropriate way of achieving that.
That's Graham. Councillor Corliss.
Thank you, Chair. I think almost planning committee, I always seem to say the same thing about energy projects. And I keep in mind that the test is compare the benefits with the residual harm. There's always short-term impacts. You know, the real test is, do the benefits outweigh the residual harm? And I think in this case, we've talked about a lot of the impacts. We've talked about school times and the biodiversity net gain and perhaps conditioning, extra conditions for the decommissioning. And if we can deal with all of these issues in terms of amending or adding to conditions, I think apart from, dealing with that, then here we have a project that ticks all the boxes and the benefits outweigh the residual harm. So I would second approval.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Bibb.
I think councillor Corliss has practically covered everything I was going to say. I mean, there's clearly traffic concerns, whether the HGVs go through Preston or Burswick, but wherever solar farms are proposed, there's going to be objections and concerns. But this is on grade 3B land. It's not on best and most versatile land. And I think we should give a significant weight to policy S2 and EC5. So I will be supporting councillor Robson on this.
Thank you, councillor Bibb. Councillor Kristen White.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to double check a couple of things. So are we actually saying that the traffic is going through Burswick, but we could put a condition in that it wouldn't be at school times? And again, I was just reading through the paperwork, the actual swales, is that something that they've definitely got to do post the actual build of the solar farm, please?
Your councillor Graham.
Yeah, the answer to the first one about the routing, the proposed routing is through Burswick, but we can add a condition on, well, not add a condition to expand the construction traffic management plan condition to include that requirement. In terms of the swales, it is something that is proposed as part of the application. We don't have the details of that, but there is a condition recommended to require full details of the surface water drainage details and management.
Councillor Arund.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to start by saying I concur with absolutely everything Councillor Smith says, but finding no reason, I was going to second it. But I just want to point out of the 3 parish councils around, 2 have no objections except 1 for the traffic situation and 1 actually supports it. So I will be supporting it.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chairman. Unfortunately, I've missed something in the papers, unlike me. And I note that it does say on page 39 that no access is proposed via Preston, which is the only objection I had to it, really, was using Preston. So thank you.
Thank you, councillor Steele. Councillor Robson, and then I think we're off to the vote after that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll accept the condition proposed by Councillor White regarding school hours. So, yeah.
Right, members, unless there's anybody else with a burning desire to speak, I think we've all had a good discussion on this one. So are we all happy to just sum up and move on? So this application is down for defer and delegate approval with the conditions on there. Also the one regarding the school timings. I think that was the only additional condition. Oh, and the deconditioning bits that we've asked for. So if we're all happy with that, it was been proposed by Councillor Robson and seconded by Councillor Corliss. So we'll move to the vote. All in favour?
11, Chairman.
That's gone through for obviously defer and delegate approval. Thank you, members. We'll just let the auditorium clear and then we'll just go on to item 6. Just give yeah, stay around. Right, members, future planning applications on page 75 to 76. Have a quick look at those. Do you have any idea what's coming up next?
Yeah, we think potentially the North Cape quarry application in December committee, but not 100% at this stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just regarding the one which says land at Neat Marsh North, northwest and southwest of Neat Marsh Road, Preston. Is that, am I getting confused? Was there one at Preston that was around that area that we did recently? Is this one that's going to be attached to it? Is it an extension? I'm assuming it's a completely different application, but it's very near to the one we've done, is it not?
Yes, there was an application, can't remember when, I think it was approved in about January or February of this year. Hasn't started any construction yet. This is a new one. It's a different operator, different applicants, but it does adjoin. It is next to that one.
Yeah, then they want to utilise it till it's full, don't they? Yeah, yeah. Anybody, any other comments on that? If not, we will close. I don't think there's anything else to discuss. Thank you for everybody's time today. See you at the next planning committee.